You know what, folks? I thought it would be fun to kind of look in the mirror, reminisce about our investing career, and just honestly talk about some of our mistakes during the first 5 years or so of investing. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk about mistakes with the one and only and wonderful Casey from Brick by Brick. How you doing, Casey?
I'm doing so good today, Michael. Thanks so much for having me today.
Oh, you're doing so good. You're so happy. You're so excited. But we're going to talk about mistakes from when we
Yep.
started. So, ladies first, what you got?
All right. So, getting started with anything you do in life is the hardest thing, right? Getting started is ultimately the hardest because it's fear of the unknown. If we all had answers to what was going to happen on the other side, there would be no fear and people wouldn't make mistakes. We just forge ahead and just get started with it. But so many people have the fear of getting started because of the mistakes that they might make. And I'm here to say, no matter how much you know in anything, you're going to make mistakes. Nobody knows everything. So the key is minimize your mistakes as much as possible by learning from others' mistakes and to don't learn too long. Don't always be in a learning phase for too long without getting started because you're going to make mistakes, you know? So I wanted to talk about some of the mistakes that I've made, and I'd love to hear what mistakes you've made starting out. And I haven't done as many deals as you, so my mistakes might be mediocre and small. So maybe mine will identify more with a new investor. But I'll start off one of the first mistakes I realized that I made later on, which wasn't a huge mistake, but it's something to keep in mind, was doing 20-year loans. So my very
Mm,
first property, I opted for the 20-year loan year and not the 30-year loan, but the 20-year loan. And the mortgage payment was higher, so I wasn't cash flowing as much, but the interest rate wasn't much of a difference either. But I thought, well, I'm going to pay it off faster and it's just a little bit more every month. So let me the 20-year loan. Looking back, now that interest rate, Michael, was like 4.5%. So I'm like, dang, I should have just kept that for 30 years because the cash that I'm paying my mortgage company every month, I could have been saving that cash flow and putting that towards another property. So when I'm investing now, even though it is so tempting to put much more down or to
mhm.
do a 15-year term, really using leverage is one of the keys to real estate success. Not over leveraging, but responsible leverage. And let's just get that creme de la creme 30-year loan, and take your cash flow, keep your cash flow.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that. There's a lot of folks that talk about 15-year loans and 20-year loans. Yeah, I always highly recommend 30-year fixed rate debt. If you want to pay it off sooner, great, but you want to have that maximum flexibility. And I think you're right. A 30-year loan gives you that. My first mistake thinking back in the early years is frankly, I tried to do it alone. I thought if I read every book, if I looked online, if I built the breast spreadsheet, I I can make it happen. And the results of that were is I wasted a lot of time. I wasted a year in a market that should have been 3 to 6 months. I got started in a new market where I knew no one and didn't network. Um, there's a saying I heard from Jim Ingersoll, your network is your net worth. I'm sure lots of people have said it. I just heard it from him first. And it's it's even to today, as embarrassing as it is to say, is I'm not great at it. I'm not great at seeking out others, right? I went to an event over the weekend to get better at social media and content creation. I should network more and do all of that. I need to get around, right? I need to get a SWAT team of other investors that we could meet weekly and, talk about what we're doing and challenges and all of that. I'm just comfortable in my own space, doing my own thing, moving forward.
Me too.
And I should have had a group. I should have, right? And that's one of the things that I created by accident, right? The one rental at a time group, the 2,000 folks in the private Facebook group. It's so fun watching all of them. I'm not even the most frequent commenter anymore by a long shot, but just to watch the people socialize and move forward and network and support each other in theirs is just amazing. So my first mistake was trying to do it alone. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's hurtful. That's
And
my first one.
on the back of that one, that's one reason why I'm really like, okay, I've got to, even though I'm in Memphis, I really need to invest out of area, not because there's an out of area that's better, but because I'm such a control freak and do so much stuff myself as far as remodeling the houses and well, me and Blake with that, mostly him, but I have to go, and self-managing and all that. Like, if I'm not nearby, I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, I need to not do some things. I need to like let go of some of those responsibilities. And I won't do that with anything that is 10 minutes away. Like, that's stupid. I wouldn't do it for me. But investing out of area where I'm forced to hire teams is like what I know I need to do next. So, all
Yeah.
right. So my another one that I have is doing another mistake that I've made was doing unnecessary repairs. And I think a lot of new investors, especially ones that have never owned a home before, never done a remodel before, or maybe have only remodeled primary homes and don't understand the differences in materials, quality, demand, value, price, what you're going to get for doing XYZ repairs. And people just want to make a lot of their rental properties look amazing. They live like primary homes and they're way overdoing rehab. So one of the things that we did and this is like our very first property, was we scraped the ceilings, Michael. We scraped the ceilings. Now, this isn't like a B neighborhood, but scraping the ceilings wasn't going to get me any more rent. And it wasn't going to make my property's equity go up. It wasn't going to increase the value of my home. So those are the two things that I tell my students. Like, if you're thinking of doing an upgrade to your property, ask yourself these two questions. Is it going to get you more rent? Yes or no? Are you going to increase the value of your home? Yes or no? Now, the only time I would say go ahead and go all out and make this house bitchin' is if you are doing a burr and your goal is you have to get that high ARV because you need that cash out refi check. Like, that's really, but still, you need to know your max and what exactly are you going to, don't just go balls to the wall and, do all these amazing things. You still have to run your numbers and look at competition and all of that. But going overboard on repairs and spending extra money, going for that, sometimes if you're doing a subway tile backsplash, you don't need the fancy tile that costs more. There's other shapes that are 67 cents piece, just being aware of the cost and the value that you're getting back from it, if it's worth it or not. But I would say doing unnecessary repairs and spending more money than I needed to and more time than I needed to was a mistake that I made. How
Love
about
that.
you?
Love that. My second one was actually a short-term debt. So we bought an apartment building with a 1031 exchange, and the seller wanted to didn't want all the cash right away. That's like an ideal situation, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you don't want all the cash. You're going to carry back a seller second in this case. Let's call it 100 grand. And by doing that, and she gave us a below market interest rate, it actually helped our cash flow. But unfortunately, I agreed to a 5-year note.
Mm-hmm.
I will never do that again. 10 years is the minimum. What I learned in that situation is 5 years goes by way fast, way fast. And if you happen to come into a situation where the lending environment is shut off, it could be a problem. It could be an uncomfortable conversation. So we had to go back to the seller and basically say, hey, we A, don't have the cash. B, we can't refi the first to pay you off. And basically had to ask her to extend the loan. Now, thankfully, she said, no problem. I get it. I understand. I was a landlord for 40 years. I know what's going on. So it turned out to be amazing. But it could have gone way wrong. She could have said something, or her heirs could have said, no, I've been planning for this cash. I need this cash, which would have meant we were forced to sell the building. And it was a bad time to sell. And we may have lost a lot of money. So I will never have a 5-year note on anything. 10-year minimum balloon payments.
Yeah, 5 years is too short. I mean, it's too short. It's just way too short of time. I mean, look what happened between now and COVID. I mean, has that been? I feel like it's been 5 years. 5 years. I mean, not enough time. There's not enough time for property values to go up or to recover from a financial crisis with the government, the economy, whatever. There's just not enough time. You need that 10 years. And if you look at, history, usually most markets will almost double every 10 years. Like, the purchase price of a home will almost double or more than double, depending upon where in 10 years. So you have a really good chance of being able to cover the extra that you need to stay above water and be able to cash out, refinance, or get a new loan and
Yep.
not have the property be worth less than it was when you bought it. It's just 5 years is too soon. So good job, Michael. All right, so I have one, and this is probably my biggest mistake, and I probably should have said this one first, but it's not doing proper tenant screening.
Mm.
Not doing, because there's only two people that take care of your property, just two. It's either you and the property manager, right? If you're a landlord and a PM, and it's the tenant. That's it. Two people in the whole world are taking care of your investment. And which one is going to be there the most? Which one is really 99% of the time taking care of your property? The person who lives there. So don't you need to 110% make sure that this person is qualified to take care of your property, has good history, good recommendations, can afford it, is on the up and up, and isn't scum of the earth? Don't you owe that to yourself? This person is 99% taking care of your investment. And to not do proper tenant screening, I did not. I used to not check credit or run background checks. I would just say, oh, let me just check your pay stubs and call to verify you have a job. And bad mistake. Bad mistake. That I have my nightmare tenant story from doing that. One lady, she had said, Casey, when I first moved in, my credit score was a 450. Mic drop. Like, what was I doing? She destroyed my property, cost me $16,000+ in repairs on a little single 3-1 and tons of gray hair. That's when I first started getting gray hairs from her. So not doing proper tenant screening was probably my biggest mistake that I made starting out.
Yeah, the next one for me, it's and I've seen others do versions of this, is I hate the 1% rule. I don't know what else to say. I think the 1% rule is cute. I acknowledge even in my book, One Rental at a Time, that I used it. So I'm giving you the after, right? I used it because it was simple. It was easy to calculate. I felt like I was doing the right thing. But when you really appreciate the 1% rule and what it says go to rougher areas, buy cheaper properties. And in hindsight, a lot of people lose their ass buying that kind of property, right?
Yep.
Also, 1% rule maybe says go buy in an HOA, right? Go buy this or that. It's just, I think the 1% rule is too simplified. I no longer use it, as I said in my book. But yeah, I, I got hooked by the sexy 1% rule. That was a mistake.
I hear that a lot, people asking about the 1% rule. And my answer to that nowadays is you're going to have your own percent rule depending upon what market you're in, because you'll know in my market, I need to be at a 1.5%. It's 1.5% rule, or it's the 0.65% rule. Like, you'll know what percent you need to be at to cash flow. So you can quickly go look at properties for sale and see if your percent rule will work and it has the potential to cash flow. And now you can do more research. So because the 1% rule is based upon all the factors that could change, like how much are you putting down?
Mhm.
What's the interest rate? What type of loan are you getting? All those things. So it's not across the board thing. So you'll know what your own percent rule is once you know your market. And that's what I tell everybody. And
Yeah.
I like my
Very
answer
cool,
on that.
Casey. Well, let's give them one more. You got one more to
Okay.
give them?
All right. One more. Let's see. I did take some notes, of course. Okay. So this is another one, and I will say it's similar to the last, but it's also important. So besides not screening tenants properly, giving tenants too many chances is another one.
Yeah.
So, you can screen your tenant properly and they can be fine, but life happens to everybody, even good people. So
Mhm.
how many chances are you giving them? The more chances you give, the more you get walked over, the more that the tenants realize that, oh, I can, my landlord, she's awesome. She'll be fine. I don't need to pay rent on time this month. She'll waive my late fee like she always does. She'll let me split payments like she always does. And the
Mm.
more that you do that, the more and more and more you're getting behind. And what was the statistic? I think we might talk about last time. 65% of Americans or something crazy are living paycheck to paycheck. And, or more. and it's like, okay, so if your tenants are already having a hard time making rent, they're already like one broken leg and 2 weeks off away, one sick kid with the flu away from not being able to get paid to pay rent, and now you're lighting that stay behind and helping. Now they owe you three or four thousand, $5,000. Are they ever really going to be able to pay you back? I mean, they would laugh. Never have $5,000 to give you. Thanks so
Mhm.
much for the 4 months free of rent, but I'm just going to have to move out because I'm never going to be able to catch up. So
Yeah.
I did that at one point, and I was owed $4,000 at one time. And the
Yeah.
lady did end up catching back up. And this was also my nightmare tenant. But it's giving too many chances. And so what I do now is I give one chance, I'll give them one opportunity. I'll say, okay, you can't make rent. What day can you pay rent? First of all, how much can you give me now? Because it's not that I always want to be paid in full at one time. You always want money now. So what can you give me now? I bet it's not nothing. And if it's nothing, I have a really hard time working with them if they're literally telling me they have nothing. Don't believe that. Never will believe that. So what can you give me now? Okay. And then when can you give me the rest? What day? And you have it, you go, and they say, oh, by next Thursday. Okay, next Thursday, the 8th, the 9th, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to get $500 today, and then X amount of dollars and however many cents, whatever, plus the late fee on the 9th, right? By what time? 5 p.m. Okay, great. Now, if they fall through and they don't do it, we're done. Because if you can't follow through on your promises, I can't trust you anymore. So I'll say, okay, you can't do it. And usually then they will ghost and they won't respond, and it'll be hard to get a hold of them. And once I do, I say, okay, if I don't get rent today, we're done. And if I don't get, I go, can you move out by Saturday? Like, I'm not going to go evict right away, but if you got to go.
Yeah.
Now, if they do follow through and they make the promise true and they give me the money, whatever, fine. Now, if it's next month and we're having problems, we need to have a conversation. And sometimes I will waive one late fee a year. So if it's their first time
Mm.
they're ever late and they're like, oh, XYZ happened, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And they come to me first and say, I'm not going to have rent on time, I will maybe waive them a late fee the first time. And I'll say, you've been a great tenant, you've been paying on, right on time for the past 15 months. Let me help you out and waive this late fee for you just this one time,
Yeah. I
and then I
guess
won't ever do that
I,
again.
I love all of it. I guess the one thing that another mistake I made was trusting good salespeople. What do I mean by that? Well, as people should know in my story, I don't self-manage. You do. I don't. I had property managers, and a lot of the first property managers were frankly real estate agents or real estate brokers. These are paid salespeople. And if you know anything about paid salespeople, if they're any good at their job, they're good at saying what you want to hear. And I was sold a bill of goods by a couple of different property managers slash agents. And eventually, the activities and their performance did not match their words and they had to be fired. Firing property managers when you're out of state or frankly out of the country is not fun, not hard, and very risky and scary and gray hairs and all of that. I should have been more diligent, found PMs who were actually investors, which thankfully we eventually found. And it just would have been, I would have saved a lot of stress. Now, again, we fired these PMs. We only had a couple of homes, so it wasn't this complete disaster. But wow, if we had to do that now, it would be traumatic. So yeah, yeah, you've got to if you're investing out of state, out of area, you really got to be diligent at who you're picking
Yep.
to represent you, because as you said earlier, they're the ones caring for the property because you're not there on the ground. So be careful. Casey, do you have one more that you're really passionate about you want to give? You have a list,
I
so I
do.
see.
I do have one more because I wrote
Awesome.
five. I like
Let's do
odd
it.
numbers. Okay. So my last one is not following up on properties. So,
Mm,
as a landlord, it's easy to not go. Now, a property management company, it's on their schedule. Someone's getting paid. Okay, today I'm going to go look at the western part of the city and I've got appointments to go check all these houses because it's been 6 months or whatever the deal is. As a landlord, you get a little lazy sometimes and go, they're fine. They pay rent. They're nice. Last time I was there, that house was fine. I'm not gonna go check on them this year. Like maybe next, I'll check on them next year or whatever it is, right? So I did that, and one of my tenants started smoking. Now they had been there for 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, I think at the time. Already been there for 4 years, and we had a great relationship, and great tenant landlord relationship. Everything was fine, and I did the renewal through DocuSign, and I didn't go.
Mm.
And then something broke or whatever, I forgot. I had to go over there, and I'm like, why does it smell like cigarettes in here? You guys have lived here for 4 years and it's never smelled like smoke before. Well, see, what happens is when you don't show up, people stop following the rules. Oh, my landlord never shows up. I'll just have a cigarette one time. Then your friends all smoke. Oh, my landlord never shows up. I'm going to get this little dog. Oh, my landlord never shows up. Oh, sure, cousin Susie, you can move in. So they started breaking all these rules, painting the walls, putting up sticky wallpaper that can't ever come off, and all sorts of things because you're never there showing that you're the owner. People start thinking the property is their property and doing what they want and destroying it because you're not there. So it's so important to be there. I recommend as often as possible without being creepy. So, every quarter, you can use the excuse, I'm going to drop by a filter for your air conditioner, and I'll put it in for you. I'll be there Friday at 2. If you're not there, no worries. Make sure your dog's outside. I have a key, something like that. Like, I'm going to go change your filter. Then, peek around and see, do the smell test, look around, everything look good. If anything, twice a year, and then if anything, once a year. If you're not at least going to your property every 6 months or once a year to see inside, or when you have a repair and your repairman goes out there, your repairman needs to go snoop around. He needs to look around and report back what he sees, smells, or finds out. One time I had a guy say, oh yeah, well, I couldn't get in because of the dogs. I said, did you say dogs plural?
Mm.
Plural dogs? Because she had one dog, not two dogs. So when you don't show up and you don't get that feedback, you don't know what's going on at your house.
Casey, you are amazing. Thank you for having this conversation about mistakes. It's not fun to talk about mistakes, but I'm sure the audience got a lot of value here. Where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central. I put on a new video. As well, and actually, last week I did a video on my mistakes, so you guys can check that out. And on Instagram every day. That's where I live. I vacation at YouTube and I live on Instagram. Brick by
I
Brickwell.
vacation at YouTube. I live on Instagram. I never heard that, but that is awesome. Casey,
Yes,
keep
it
being
is.
awesome. Take care.